Think of this as your space to come to feel motivated and inspired to take on your biggest dreams, while also just chatting with your best friend. Cozy up for some girl time and get ready to feel uplifted and inspired. I'm so excited to announce Let's Make Art has become a new sponsor to the Detailed Diary podcast. You can check out my exclusive discount link in the show notes below this episode and stay tuned to hear all about why I love using Let's Make Art for all of my art project needs. Hello and welcome to the Detailed Diary podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Holleran, and today we're going to be chatting all about dealing with customer complaints in your small business. This has been such a highly requested topic and something I've wanted to talk about for quite some time, and I'm very excited to dive into everything surrounding customer complaints, customer service, how I navigate this area, and everything along those lines. Customer service and dealing with customer complaints is definitely, I would say, the thing I dislike most about running my own small business and the thing that causes me the most stress and anxiety and frustration. And I've definitely gotten better at handling these types of situations for sure, as my business has grown and as I've grown as a business owner and things like that. But it is still definitely very difficult to deal with situations like these. So I'm hoping to give you some advice throughout this episode, share some stories about different things that I've had happen to me to hopefully make you feel less alone and help you to be able to navigate these very difficult situations. Now, if you run a small business and you haven't had to deal with any negative customer interactions or customer complaints, that is great. But I will guarantee you that it's going to happen one day. No matter how incredible your business is, how amazing your products are, how wonderful your customer service is, the list can go on and on and on. There really is nothing that you can do to avoid these situations at a certain point. As your business grows and as you reach a wider audience, it really and truly is inevitable. And I say that as kind of a word of encouragement. I know it doesn't really sound like it, but I just want you all to know, listening, that it's not you. It's just small business life. It's working with the public and it just happens. So try not to take these things personally, because there is really no avoiding it at a certain point. Of course, we're going to talk about the things that you can do to make your business better. Of course, sometimes, yes, we do make mistakes and it is us, but there's also times where we really just cannot avoid these types of situations, and we just have to learn how to deal with them as a small business owner. Now, companies, like bigger companies, have customer service teams that literally deal with customer complaints as a full-time job. As a small business owner, you are the one dealing with all of this. I would love to have someone deal with my customer service. As I mentioned, it's probably my biggest stress and anxiety in my business. Not even all the negative stuff, just the constant communication can be incredibly stressful and overwhelming, and the need to feel like you have to be on, 24/7. But I will say, I feel like the most difficult part of dealing with negative customer interactions is the fact that we are the person behind everything. We're the one who handmade their order probably, or provided their service personally. We're the person who put blood, sweat, tears, effort into their piece. So when we're the person who's receiving that negative interaction, it feels like a punch to the gut personally, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, this is my livelihood. This is what I've spent so much time and effort on. Like, how could you say something like that? Like, we take it as a personal attack, and we really need to try to take ourselves out of the equation and just think like this person doesn't realize that, they're talking to the exact person who handmade the exact product that they got. They may not mean it as harshly as we're taking it and just need to remind ourselves that. So I'll kind of run through a bunch of different scenarios, how I approach different complaints, how different complaints can improve our business, and things along those lines. So first and foremost, how I approach negative customer interactions. And this has changed drastically throughout my business. I know I recorded an episode a long time ago chatting all about the reasons why I left Etsy. And if you listen to that episode, I believe it was my 3rd episode or 5th episode. It was very early on, but I talked about why the main reason I left Etsy is because of how terrible I was treated by the customers and taken advantage of and things along those lines. So how I've dealt with customer complaints and negative customer interactions has definitely changed as my business has grown and developed, and as I've gained a different audience, and as I've gained more confidence and more expertise in the items I was selling. So there's a difference between a customer complaining about actually something wrong with a product. We'll start there. So I learned this the difficult way early on in my business. When I first started, I was not an expert. I was just getting started as a side business. And I learned a lot through tough love of honest and brutal customers on things that really did need fixing and improvement. And it never felt good to get that type of feedback. But looking back, yeah, there were a lot of things that negative feedback helped me improve in my business. And I know that doesn't sound good to hear because we never want to admit that getting negative feedback is a good thing, but sometimes constructive criticism really can help our business. And it really did help my business, especially during that first year that I was on Etsy. Now, were there times when customers would try to take advantage of me and complain about things that were just completely outside the realm of things that would constitute a complaint? Yes, of course that would happen too, but I think it is important as a small business owner, as difficult as it can be, to just set aside your pride whenever you do receive that negative feedback and think to yourself, okay, if I was in their position as a customer, how would I be feeling? Whatever the situation may be that they're complaining about, especially early on. We'll talk about more experience and more confidence in your products and things like that in just a little bit. But I'm talking really early on. Set your pride aside and just see if this can be a learning experience for you. Yes, they may not have worded the complaint very nicely. They may be being very rude and not a nice person, which, is a whole other frustration because I do believe that there can be nice ways to go about things, especially if, you receive a product that you may not be fully happy with. Instead of ripping the seller apart, I do think that you can approach things in a nice way, but many people just, again, they don't realize that there's the actual person on the other side receiving that feedback. So try your best to set your pride aside, take your personal emotions out of it, and just evaluate the complaint for what it is. Is this actually something that could be improved in your business? And if it is, let's use this as a learning experience. So that is my first tip of advice, especially when you're just getting started. Just know that, this happens to all of us. If it hasn't happened to you as a small business owner, then maybe you're just really killing it from the absolute get-go. But for the most part, this is just going to happen as you make mistakes and as you grow and learn. Now, when it comes to actually how do I approach these situations in real time, I always try to fix the situation for the customer to the best of my ability. So let's first get started with the type of situation I just explained. Let's say, we're getting started with our business. We're still learning things. We're receiving feedback from customers that, is constructive criticism. It's going to help our business. It's actually things that we need to improve and change upon. I'll always offer the customer who is dissatisfied either a full refund or a replacement of the piece. Now, if you're just getting started and maybe they're complaining about the quality or, something along those lines, maybe a full refund is the better option if, they don't want a replacement because they're not happy with the product or something along those lines. At the end of the day, a lot of times it can be easier just to give a refund, give a replacement to mitigate the situation rather than arguing back and forth and back and forth. Now, I will say there's a time and place for everything, and if a complaint isn't justified by any means, I'm not going to just go ahead willy-nilly giving refunds left and right. And there have been multiple times where I have had to go back and forth with a customer explaining my process, explaining XYZ, and things like that. So first and foremost, if it is a justified complaint, I will just automatically, right off the bat, send the customer an email back. I'm so sorry that they're dissatisfied. You can either receive a refund or a replacement. Let me know what works best for you. Simple, done, easy, end of story. Now, if it is a complaint that doesn't justify a refund or a replacement, these are the ones that are definitely much more difficult to deal with. Before we get into these types of complaints, I'll just kind of give you a run through of the types of complaints I see in my business now that will constitute that automatic, okay, here you go. Do you want a, replacement or a refund? So as I mentioned, when I first got started, a lot of this was people maybe complaining about like the quality of something or, here and there, things along those lines, if they were dissatisfied with the product or had an issue that when I actually put my pride aside and really sat down and thought about it, I was like, you know what? I could do better. I can do better. And this is going to serve as a learning experience for me to improve my products. End of story. Refund. Now, some of the things I deal with now where I am extremely confident with my products, I know that the quality and artwork and everything is really top-notch, top of the line. Like, I know what I'm doing now, and that portion of things isn't really an issue. So a lot of the complaints that I get now really just have to surround with issues with orders that are outside of my control. So whether that be damages with shipping, I don't have a ton of shipping damages. I would say less than 1% of all of my orders that are shipped out are damaged, but it still does happen, especially when I have a huge influx of orders. There's just bound to be some damages that occur. So while it doesn't happen often, it still does happen, and there's still complaints that I have to deal with. So sometimes people are more, nice than others when they're reaching out about a damaged piece. Sometimes people are like very nasty, as if they thought, I packaged it up damaged and sent it to them. But whether someone is reaching out very nasty or just sweet, asking what the next steps are, it's always the same answer. I'll send them a message. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, yada, 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 and offer them either an immediate replacement or a refund. Another type of situation like this is if I mess up on a sign. It happens. I try to catch things that I can. I try to have my assistants catch things as they're packaging them up. But at the end of the day, like, I'm human and it's bound to happen. I'm bound to spell someone's name wrong and not catch it. Like, it doesn't happen often. It really doesn't, but it happens. And so I'll get customer complaints like that. Of course, they receive their order. They open it up. If, there's a mistake on it, of course, they're not happy. Again, same thing as the damages example. Some people are extremely rude about it, and other people are very nice about it and approach it in a situation where, they send me an email. Was this a mistake? Can I see if there's anything we can do about this? And other times people are just extremely, extremely, extremely rude. And same thing in either one of those situations. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I can send you, usually in that case, they don't want a refund. I can send you an immediate replacement and squash the problem from there. So kind of knowing how to approach those situations really helps. Like I mentioned, now in my business, those are the two main complaints that I see that are justified as like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Like, we are taking care of that. Do not worry about it, and fixing the situation for the customer. Other than that, there really aren't many complaints that constitute that type of response. So going back to complaints that I saw earlier on in my business, as well as some other ones we'll chat about now in my business, there unfortunately are customers who do try to get stuff for free. And it really sucks that there's people out there in the world that do this to small business owners, but it happens. And I'm not going to dwell on this and talk through like all the examples, because I talked a bunch about this in my reasons why I left Etsy episode, but I used to see this a ton on Etsy. People would complain about the size that they got, even though they chose the exact dimensions of the sign. People would complain about how something is written. The list kind of goes on and on and on. And as you get more experienced in business, you can kind of tell who is making something up because they want something for free, or who is actually concerned. I always make customers send photos of damages if they have a piece that's damaged, because unfortunately I've had many customers say that they've had a damaged piece, and then when I ask them for photos, absolutely nothing. Follow back up with them, ask for photos, tell them, just send along a photo, like I'll get you an immediate refund, replacement, absolutely nothing. Like, it's happened multiple times, and it really sucks. So there's definitely those types of complaints when it comes to business, and it's on us as small business owners to be able to navigate those in a way that is professional, but also stands up for our business. When I first got started, any type of negative complaint, I was like, oh my goodness, just like, here's your money back. Like, I just didn't even want to deal with it, until I started dealing with some more customers, like I just mentioned, where it's like, no, I'm sorry. Like, you're just trying to be difficult and you're just trying to get your money back. I know that the piece I sent you is exactly what you ordered. The quality is up to par. There are no mistakes on it. Like, it is exactly as is expected, and trying to distinguish that line can be very difficult, especially when you're learning, and especially when you're continually making updates and improvements to your products. It can be difficult to say, like, no, like, my product is good. I know that what I'm doing is great, and I'm confident in the work that I'm doing, when a customer is complaining and gaslighting you. And it's very interesting because I have customers gaslighting me. I won't say often, but when I do have a customer complaining about a product that isn't like a legitimate complaint, like there was a mistake in the product or like a damage or anything like that, a lot of times they're gaslighting me. And it's seriously one of my biggest pet peeves when I receive an email that is something along the lines of, I just received my package. I'm really not happy with it. It appears that you were rushing through it, yada, 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 like the list goes on and on. And oh goodness, does it take everything in me to not respond with a whole entire paragraph of like, oh my gosh, like, do you know how much time I spent on your sign? Like, it's just so infuriating when someone reaches out with those words, like accusing you of not caring about their piece or rushing through it or something along those lines. And I've definitely gotten my fair share of emails like that. And again, in that situation, like, I just take a deep breath. I try to be the bigger person. I address them saying, I'm so sorry that you're not happy with your order. Would you be able to send a photo of, what you're dissatisfied with? And 99% of the time they send a photo, and it is perfectly aligned with, all of my work and all of the expectations that I put out on my website and things along those lines. So oftentimes I will simply send counter photos back and just explain to them, like, this is how your, piece compares to all of the other examples on my website. It is perfectly aligned with my quality, my style, my approach, and I will ensure them that, I did not rush through your piece. I spent, as much time as I would have with any other piece, and I'll just try to, as professionally as I can without my emotions involved, explain to them how much effort and work was put into their piece and how it really does align with my business. Now, most times in this situation, I will tell the customer, if you want to send your piece back and you want me to, fix something or touch it up or make any changes, you can do so. And I've only had one person ever send their piece back. So if that speaks any truth, I think that just speaks for itself. But I always, as much as it pains me, like to give people the option of rectifying the situation one way or another. Just the place that I'm at in my business now, I really just need to uphold a very high standard of customer service. And as difficult as that is, especially when I receive those emails gaslighting me and accusing me of, this, that, and the other thing. Oh, is it the most difficult thing to just take a deep breath and cater to the customer? It is. But I know that at the end of the day, they probably don't want a new piece. They probably just wanted me to offer them a full refund, which in those situations, I'm just not going to do, because I would be refunding every single customer who gets a perfect order that I've handcrafted. It's just not fair. So how I approach those situations, because, I'm trying to talk through legitimate approaches that will help you all navigate these situations. I will oftentimes ask them if they would like to send the piece back, if they have any direction that they would want me to fix, and so on. And 99% of the time, I do not hear back, because they were just looking for a refund, because they just wanted to see if they could complain to get a refund, which is just extremely frustrating. Whether you are new to art or a lettering artist like me, or simply looking to jump into a new hobby, Let's Make Art has all of your supplies and needs to channel your inner artist. From all of the best lettering supplies to subscription boxes and kits curated by in-house artists, this revolutionary crafting company really does have it all. I personally have been eyeing their step-by-step watercolor kits to create some new art for baby's nursery. Head on over to zen.ai/the Detailed Diary Pod 0 for 20% off your first order. I have had people reach out regarding the tiniest of imperfections on signs. And as a small business owner who all of my products are physically handmade, and we're talking wooden signs and things, and I'm a perfectionist, it is very difficult to see emails like that I'm talking, I think I've gotten 2 emails like this in my entire past couple years of doing my wooden signs and things. But someone complaining about how, one of my printed letters isn't perfect. And I'm talking they will take a photo of the exact letter and send it to me and say, well, the A isn't perfectly straight, or something along those lines. And it's oh my goodness, I handwrite these, and so again, it takes everything in me to not message back and say, oh my goodness, do you not realize that I handwrite every single one of these? I'm not a typewriter. It's almost physically impossible to get every single letter perfectly straight. It's very difficult to not go through that rampage. So what I'll do, if I'm being honest, my friends get Snapchats constantly throughout the month of any customer complaint, because I need to vent. You need to get that frustration off your chest. So I'll vent to my friends, and then, I'll type out a very kind response. I'm so sorry you are dissatisfied with your piece. And again, I will explain to them, of course, I will make any changes that they need to. And 99% of the time, they won't answer, because they don't want to send it back, because they were just looking for a refund. And I talked through a lot of these examples, but again, while the negative customer complaints stick out and really stick with you, this stuff truly doesn't happen often. It happens more often when I have an influx of orders, because the more orders you have going out, especially with something like TikTok and viral orders and people who are just completely unfamiliar with your business, the more negative customer interactions you're going to have, just because the higher mass of orders you're doing, just statistically, the more issues you're probably going to have. But on just like a normal business basis, maybe I'll have like one customer a month have an issue or something along those lines. Maybe like 10 customers a year, which in the reality of doing hundreds and hundreds of signs and orders, like it really isn't bad. But boy, do these have a way of just sticking with you. Like that's just how life is. And I also have to remind myself that you're going to hear from 100% of the people who are not satisfied. Like that's just how it goes. If someone isn't satisfied, 10 out of 10 times you're going to hear from them. Whereas if someone is satisfied and loves their piece, maybe you'll hear from like 1% of the people who are satisfied, maybe not even like personally through email. I'm just judging from me personally. When's the last time I emailed someone after receiving something to tell them how much I loved it? Like, no, I just move on with my life because I love whatever, I got in the mail. I don't take time out of my day to write them an email. When I do get those emails, oh my gosh, it like makes my entire day. But you just have to remind yourself that you're going to hear from 100% of the people who aren't satisfied and maybe like 1% of the people who actually are. So that is also just something to keep in mind. Now, in terms of how to not let this affect your mental state, it's extremely difficult. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I've gotten much better as my business has grown with feeling more confident in my products and knowing like, okay, the quality of my products is wonderful. Like the artwork that I do on my products, I know is wonderful. I'm very confident with my work. So when I do receive messages like this, it's easier for me to not get as upset on a personal level, like, oh my gosh, am I not good enough? Like that type of thing that used to happen earlier on. Now I'm like, oh, I know my work is good enough. I'm more so frustrated. And I know this may seem like very deep of me, but I'm more so frustrated at like the world. Like, how are there people out there who can act this way type of thing? I don't as much take it as a personal attack anymore. It's more so just like infuriating that this is something that we have to deal with as small business owners. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, like that is just life and that is just dealing with the public. And you can never expect to be treated ever. If I have learned anything, and I chatted about this in my Etsy episode as well, you can never expect to be treated how you would treat others. Like as savage and like awful as that sounds, no one's going to treat you the way that you would treat yourself. And you just have to go into small business with that expectation. Now, I posted a TikTok about this maybe like a month ago or so. So if you want to hear like more of the story, you can go over there. But just in the spirit of sharing negative customer interactions, I've also had negative customer interactions that aren't necessarily related to specific products per se, but just related to overall customer service and like demand of communication. So if I don't answer an email as soon as the customer would like, or if I don't, whatever the case may be, a lot of times, again, unfortunately, like in the world we're living in as a small business owner, like these are just things you have to deal with. We live in a very instant gratification world, so people get angry when they aren't instantly answered. They don't realize that there's one person answering all emails, and sometimes it takes 24 to 48 hours to answer an email. Sometimes you have to wait a whole weekend because I'm not answering my emails over the weekend. And I'll get nasty customers who don't like that because they want their questions and needs answered like that specific minute. So again, just not letting these types of things affect you mentally, trying to not let them change your perception of your business and the confidence you have in your business. I had a lady, this is the example I was talking about, threaten me that she was going to report me to her bank because I wasn't answering her in a reasonable manner, and she needed to make an adjustment on her order. And she had sent me 3 emails consecutively in a row after 6 p.m. on a Monday night. And I didn't get them until the next morning because I don't check my emails at night. And had to really take a breather and say oh my goodness, how is this possible? So in any case, I could literally go on and on and on about different customer interactions, but just know that if you're running a business, no matter what level you're at, you're going to have to learn how to navigate customer service and customer complaints, because the more your business grows, the wider of an audience you're going to reach and the heavier of a demand of customer service you're going to have as you start to reach more customers and start to sell more orders. Now, the last kind of tidbit, this is going to be a little bit of a longer episode, but the last kind of tidbit I will throw into this, because it's not necessarily customer complaints, but it's definitely negative interactions, is how to navigate dealing with negative interactions on social media. And this isn't something that everyone is going to have to deal with all the time. This isn't something that I have to deal with all the time. It definitely goes in waves, but this is also one of the roots to my biggest stressors and anxieties in my business. For some reason, when people have issues with their orders, instead of emailing me, they will send me a DM. So, it's Friday night, I'm just hanging out on the couch, watching a show, going through my DMs, chatting with you guys about small business or outfits, whatever the case may be, because I chat with you guys about a bunch of stuff on social media. And then I get a message request from someone. So I click into my requests and see a bunch of photos, and I just got my order and it's damaged and blah, 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 blowing me up. And it's just oh my goodness, I'm not working right now, and the thoughts start creeping in and the stress starts creeping in and things like that. And unfortunately, again, this is just something that we have to deal with when it comes to small business. So I approach this type of situation how I would approach the same, if someone were to email me about any type of issue with an order, calmly respond to them. And I'll just say, please email me at, my email with your order number, be happy to help you and resolve any issues. And I'll just tell them I'll get back to you in the morning when I'm at my desk type of thing. So that's one type of thing, dealing with negative interactions on social media, similar to what I just spoke about before, except instead of in the form of an email, it's in the form of a message and can come in at any time of the day, whether you're working or not. Now, when it comes to negativity on social media, oh man, I didn't quite know this world until I would say a year and a half ago, when I started having some viral TikToks and things like that. And again, with what I was mentioning before about customers reaching out, just the main thing that you just have to keep in mind, if you ever receive any type of negative comment or, negative message, is that you just cannot expect people to treat you the way you would be treated. I mean, look at the comments on TikTok on people's videos. It really just is so sad to see that there are so many people in the world who can go out of their way to write something rude to anyone. And I'm not talking just about small business owners. You just have to know that there are unfortunately a lot of people like that in the world, and it's not a personal attack on your business. It is just a reflection of whatever that person is going through. For instance, on one of my videos that is doing really well on Reels right now, I opened up my notifications, and again, I don't look through all my comments because I don't want to torture myself. But sometimes I'll just see a comment pop up, and this person wrote something along the lines of oh, it was looking really good until you wrote the second O in the first line. And then it just went downhill from there. And it's okay, did you need to what? Why are you going out of your way to be rude to people? I mean, stuff like that. Again, I absolutely do not take it personally, because I'm no, I know that sign was beautiful. You're just being a jerk, honestly. So, Sometimes I'll respond something sassy. Like that one, I was just in like a sassy mood last night. I had a really long day. So I was like, oh, that's so nice of you. Like, thanks so much for your feedback. Love it. Or like something annoying. I'll be super passive aggressive. But most times I will just delete the comment and block the person because it's just not worth your time and energy. So hopefully most of you won't have to deal with any like trolls or really negative comments or things like that. Because even me, like this really only happens when I have something go viral, and I just learned to laugh at it now. Like my husband and I will just go through the comments and laugh. Again, I'll screenshot these comments and send them to my friends, and we'll just be like, oh my God, like where are these people in the world? Like what is going on? And you just have to laugh about it. But the last thing that I will kind of touch on when it comes to social media is, issues that customers may have that can come up through social media. And I'm not talking like someone reaching out in that other example about like, oh, my order was damaged, like whatever, through your messages. Like, for instance, this kind of stuff is hard to explain, but I had someone message me once asking, I was talking about all new pop-up shop pieces, and she asked me like, oh, I'd love to order this, but is it going to arrive damaged because my last, piece arrived damaged? And it's like, yes, I hand smash every single piece before I ship it out, actually. So yeah, it's definitely going to arrive damaged. Like just stuff like that where it's just like, no, of course I ensure every piece to be fully safe and whatever, So just dealing with comments and messages like that, where that's like a specific example, but that kind of stuff happens often where it's just like backhanded little comments and things that, they don't make your day better, definitely. And this isn't me to like sit here and complain about this or that or, everything like that. It's more so just to have like an open and transparent conversation about all of the stuff that goes on in business. And maybe if you're listening as like an earlier small business owner and like thinking to yourself like, oh my gosh, wow, you deal with like a lot of customer difficulties. Like, isn't there something that you can do to like make your business better? Those are like the intrusive thoughts that come into my mind. And I just have to remind myself that, I have a really awesome business. My products are awesome. The artwork I create is awesome. Do I make mistakes? Of course, I'm human. But am I also one person dealing with all of this when businesses, larger businesses have, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, a literal team for customer service? Does that mean that Target's a bad business? No. Does that mean that Home Goods is a bad business? No. Customer service and customer complaints and difficult interactions are just things that we have to deal with as business owners. And no one talks about it because when you're talking about negative customer interactions, it's like you're admitting that you're messing up, or you're admitting that there's mistakes going on, or you are admitting that people aren't happy with your products. But there's nothing wrong with that because it's business. It happens. You can't be perfect. Your business can't be perfect. And even if it was perfect, there would still be someone who's complaining. I would bet my life on it because I've seen it. So I really hope that this episode just made you feel a little better about dealing with this end of business, made you feel a little more confident moving forward with dealing with these types of situations, how to approach them, different options that you may have, and just letting go of the expectation that everyone's going to treat you in your business the way that you would treat your business, because unfortunately, that is just not the case. So today I'm writing down in my figurative detailed diary that while negative customer interactions can be so all-consuming and overwhelming at times, we have to remind ourselves that every single person goes through this, every single business deals with this, and it is not a definition of us, our talent, or our business. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Sorry if this was a little bit more of a downer episode, but I really hope that it was helpful. Be sure to follow along at Detailed Diary Podcast for all the fun and cute little graphics to stay up to date with the podcast and everything that is going on, and I will chat with you all next week. Thank you so much to Let's Make Art for sponsoring the Detailed Diary Podcast. Whether you're learning a craft or taking up a new hobby, Let's Make Art has you covered from monthly subscriptions to project kits and everything in between. If you go to zen.ai/thedetailediarypod0, you'll receive 20% off your first order. I can't wait to see what you create with Let's Make Art. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Detailed Diary Podcast. Make sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Be sure to join our community over on Instagram at Detailed Diary Podcast and introduce yourself. I'm looking forward to meeting you over there, and I will see you next Wednesday for a brand new episode. Until then, have an amazing week.